unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. And we travel around the world talking to creative practitioners of all kinds. And today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. And more than that, the adaptability, the optimism, the grit, the lessons learned, everything that goes into being an entrepreneur. I'm so glad to have as my guest, Bob Campana. Bob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so grateful.
Bob is a 40-year entrepreneur, hospitality, travel, real estate, even aviation. We'll talk about all that good stuff. And he's the author of a great book, Don't Look Down. And I got to start with the title. Bob, Don't Look Down. What inspired that title?
When I decided to write the book, it was basically a memoir for my grandchildren. So I was going to dig into it because as you age, you start reflecting on, are they going to even remember who I am when I'm long gone? And like your window of being on the planet is getting shorter and shorter at 72. Who knows when it's going to happen? So I start writing this book. You talked about briefly on aviation, and I've been a helicopter pilot for about 20 years, fly fixed wing aircraft as well. And it's a metaphor to where look up, look what the future has hold for you. Don't look down and don't look at what the negativity is going to be there or the adversity is going to be there, because adversity is part of being alive and breathing air. You're going to have adversity in life no matter what. On the other hand, is the only thing you can really control is how you react to that adversity and what your mindset is going forward and what your actions that you take when you're confronted with adversity. And that takes a while to learn that.
Yes, and there's plenty of lessons learned. Folks, Bob founded the beloved restaurant Redwood Café in Modesto, California. He's also then expanded that idea. The Redwood Café Tours are now across Europe and Asia. So if you like travel and you like hospitality, you like cafes, you like touring, they offer all of that. But Bob, all these businesses in all of these different industries, you keep reinventing yourself. You don't get stuck in one version of what some people would call success. What's been key for you across some of these businesses, and it keeps you reinventing?
One thing is that I've been gifted with curiosity. I always want to be curious about different things. But at the end of the day, it's the human connection that basically, when I first started my career, I did hot tubs. In the book, I talk about when I was 21 years old, I took this transformational journey around the world, experienced eye-opening how big the world was. When I returned, I made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to squander the opportunity that America offered, which was to be a trailblazer, be an entrepreneur. The land of opportunity was America. As you travel around the world, everyone would speak of it. They would want to come to America because of that. I didn't want to squander that. So I decided to go into business, and I started out with hot tubs. And in the hot tubs, we basically started getting hired by landscaping and swimming pool contractors to put the hot tubs into their project as a subcontractor. We saw that world and then evolved into being those contractors ourselves, where I wanted to build the pools and the landscaping. That company built up to where it had about 170 employees, and I was doing around 500 what we call dirt to Disneyland projects each year, where we would take a blank slate of dirt and transform it into a beautiful yard and entertainment session. That process, which I was involved in integrally for so many families, gave me a groundwork of understanding motivation of people, because they were rewarding themselves for hard work to buy a swimming pool. And then I had to listen to them create a word picture and diagram of what their dream was, have them agree to spend tens of thousands of dollars to buy it based on a picture, and then go out and actually produce that work and hopefully that work reflected their imagination of what they were paying for when they bought the project. That process really enlightened me to people's motivations and what they did to reward themselves. When I sold that company, that was a big reward. That was like a social statement. I can afford to buy a pool. I've made a certain amount of economic prosperity where I'm able to do that for my family. And I'm buying that so that I can buy literally memories. I'm buying like the hot dogs, the kid cannonballing in the pool, the lights at night, the conversations with my neighbors and their children jumping in the pool. That's what they were buying, was the photographs and the memories of those years together as a family. As I sold that business, I thought about a little deeper about that particular thing. And I had a property that we had bought that was a wedding venue that I had owned. And we basically just had a little side business where we did weddings. So we're up to like maybe 40, 50 weddings a year at this place. When I sold the pool business, my daughters, I have 4 daughters, and they lived, a couple of them lived in San Francisco at the time. They'd have me and my wife down there to visit them under the auspices that they missed us, which was they basically just wanted to go to restaurants that they couldn't afford in the city. So we'd go down and we'd visit these restaurants and they'd start working on me. Dad, you're creative. Why don't you build a restaurant? Any entrepreneur worth their salt, when they heard the word restaurant, heads for the hills. They go, this is not something that has a great reputation for success or fulfillment. But I had this property and I was full of myself at the time, to be perfectly honest with you. And I thought, if I can build this pool business up and sell it for a lot of money, why don't I just go into the restaurant business? I could do the same thing there. It's kind of hubris to a certain degree. So I said, if I could run a restaurant, then I can pretty much do anything. So I took it on in that challenge. 20 years later, that restaurant was the most popular venue, which was voted the 18th most romantic restaurant out of 68,000 restaurants at Yelp. Fantastic. With no view. And we basically did that all through the higher level of thinking about the restaurant in relationship to why do people go to a restaurant, the kind of restaurant that I had, what's their motivation, what do they want? It's to a large degree escapism, or you want to just kind of get away from your problems, your troubles, whatever it is, have a conversation with your wife or another couple or several couples and enjoy that companionship in that hours or couple of 3 hours of dining when you have that. So what I did is I paid attention to lighting. I paid attention to acoustics. I paid attention to the whole atmosphere of what was going on in the front of the house, along with every other thing. And one of the things that I read this book, and it would be very beneficial for anybody to read this book. I unfortunately can't remember the name of it, but it was like written by this guy named Jan Carlson, and he took over Scandinavian Air Systems that was losing like $70 million a year.
Wow.
And in 24 months, he made a $17 million profit. When he was able to turn that business around, the Harvard Business Review and these people are interviewing him and saying, what exactly did you do? And he said, I watched the business for around 2-3 months and just how things were going. And then I had this epiphany that there were 2 segments for me that I had to focus on to make that business successful. And the first one he called memory moments. And the memory moments were any time the customer had an opportunity to make a judgment on the actions of the business. And those judgments only had 3 outcomes: positive, negative, neutral. So we'll use an example of what he did. Is he said, so he broke down to buying an airplane ticket. And this was back in like the 60s, 70s, when you had to call up a travel agent and order a ticket and go down and get it physically and all of the stuff. And he broke it down to where, okay, when they call in for the ticket, and how does the person talk on the phone, and how is that reacted, and what is the outcome of that phone call? Positive, negative, neutral. When they come to pick up their ticket at the travel agent or at the desk in the airport, and they receive the ticket and they talk to the flight attendant, positive, negative, neutral, all the way through. We had like about 35 of these different opportunity to make judgment. So I did that in the pool business. I basically took those things and I said, how many times do people have to judge me? It was like, if the truck showed up on time, was the job site left neat and clean? Was the communication good with the customer? If they had a problem, was it addressed in a proper and correct manner? There was around 40 or 45 moments of truth or memory moments in the construction of the pool. At the end is the moment of truth. And the moment of truth is when that barbecue's happening and the neighbors come over and the kids are cannonballing in the pool and the guys are having a beer together over by the grill. And one of the guys goes, John, we're thinking about building a pool for our family. Who did you hire to build the pool? And would you hire them again? At that exact moment, his brain reviewed all the memory moments. And anything that happened negatively would be his first response. So an example of that would be they built this pool, it was great, but when they poured the concrete, there was a crack right in front of the steps, if you can believe that. So I called Bob up and I said, Bob, I've got a problem. Can you come out and see me? And I would go out there and they would show me the crack in front of their steps of their pool. Now, that crack, if the pool was $70,000, the crack was worth $70,000. It was a problem. So I basically would say, what do you suggest we do about it? At that point, if the person was reasonable, usually they say, if you would just take this one section of concrete out and re-pour it, we'd be really happy. Or that crack's bad, I'd like to be compensated for it in a certain way. If you'd build me a bench over here or something like that, I'd be good with that because I know the concrete's not going to match if you take it out, whatever it might be. And if it was a reasonable thing, then I would basically say, then that's what we're going to do.
Sure.
Now, at the moment of truth, they tell that story. They say, by the way, I had a crack. Bob came out. He basically asked me what I did it. He goes, I'm going to tell you what, something might happen on the job, but if it's not right, they're going to take care of it. I'd hire him again for sure. So you would manage the memory moments to create the moment of truth. And that is true in every dinner I have in a restaurant. I try and create, is the service good? Is the water glass kept full? Is the music good? Can you hear yourself talk? Are you being attended to? Is the flavor in your steak right? Every little freaking detail along the way is creating that experience. And that experience is going to be shared with others if it's mostly favorable, because we're all seeking experiences and sharing them with others as an endorser. So if we were to go to your coffee shop and have a great conversation and a great latte or an Americano or whatever it might be, and we're talking to some friends in the office to go, this guy's got this coffee shop I go to and the vibe is really cool there and I just really enjoy going there, then that's the moment of truth. And that's how you're building that business right now today.
Yes. And I think about those memory moments, but you add in a restaurant, a cafe, this element of community. You were talking about, I'm there with a friend, I'm there with another couple, I'm at a table full of friends. Or you also are gathering with neighbors or people you don't know, and you say, that's part of the experience. And I'm curious at your cafe, how you built that community hub. That's where people wanted to gather.
One of the things is my personal involvement in it in a way where I, on the weekends and sometimes randomly in midweeks, I do what's called table touching. And I will basically just show up in the restaurant and I will walk and talk to every customer there. I will walk up to their table. I'll introduce myself as the owner of the business. I'm very grateful that they have chosen to come to Redwood Cafe tonight for their dinner and would like to thank them for coming. And if there's anything that I could do, and then I would always ask them, why are you here? You decide who is the person responsible for having this group. A lot of times somebody will raise their hand. Oh, I decided to bring everybody and show them and whatever it might be. And that recognition of thank you from the owner, I'm able to look into their eyes and see if they really are truly enjoying themselves, because I can tell that right off the top. The staff knows that I'm interviewing those people, so they know that if it's their table, it better be going good. Are you familiar with a guy by the name of Danny Mayer?
Sure. Yes, I know the name.
Yeah, his book, Setting the Table. I'm an avid reader. I'm always curious of learning. And he wrote this fantastic book about what running a fine casual or fine dining restaurant's all about in New York. And he would talk about how setting that vibe and how putting that together for people would basically create this sense of community, and how constant, gentle pressure in leadership would ensure that vibe stayed constant through the owner's constant involvement in the situation and
Yes.
awareness of it.
Yeah,
So
that's the
I'm
question
assuming,
that it prompted is how do you replicate that? How do you infiltrate that across the staff and across the days, across when you're not there, et cetera, et cetera?
you're like in the restaurant, you have the front of the house, you have the back of the house. So the back of the house, you got your dishwashers, your prep cooks, your line cooks. All of those servers are coming in and out, getting the orders and all of that. So when I'm in the house on the night, I will divide my time around 60% in the front of the house with the customers and 40% in the back of the house with the team. And I'll be going back there. I'll be basically saying, "Hey guys, I need a hors d'oeuvre on the fly here for a customer out in front. And let me have that real quick." And I'll be talking with them while they're making it up or whatever it is. I'm motivating them. I'm telling them how people are enjoying their food, on what's going on. And I'm creating a sense of camaraderie and dinner service. And I'm coming between giving them reports on how wonderful their work is that they're doing, and then vice versa, how the customers are very happy with what's going on. So you got this like thing going on, and I will basically do that. And it's all about respect. So the first person that I will generally talk to when I enter the restaurant is the dishwashers. I'll go into the back to the dish pit and I will thank them for their hard work and for anything that I can do for them to make their day better. I'll go get them a Coke from the bar. I'll basically just schmooze them a little bit, because those are very important people in the restaurant. They have all the dishes cleaned and ready in a timely manner, and pots and pans and all that. And then I'll walk my way through the prep cooks, and I'll go into the front of the house. So that process lets them know, number one, I'm here. Number two, that I've recognized every one of them and appreciate what we're going to happen, what we're going to do tonight. And then I'm going to go out and represent us in a very favorable way to keep the doors open. It got to a point when I really discovered at COVID. So we're in California. I don't know where you're located, but we're in California.
Idaho.
Where are you at?
Yeah, Idaho.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're in freaking California. Our illustrious rocket scientist governor shuts down restaurants. I think it was 3 individual times where we had to basically purge our walk-in box of all of the food and give it away to people and employees and so forth. And when the restaurant came back, the amount of gratitude that the community had to be able to go back in and have the human connection and be available, it was eye-opening to me. That was the role that the restaurant had in the community. I hadn't really registered that before. I was just kind of like doing it to get business. Hey, if I make a really cool lighting situation on this table and fix it so each other can hear themselves. In COVID, one of the things that we did was we made partitions in the restaurant for this social distancing thing. That created these little enclaves. When people came in, they had their own little personal space that they could have, these little areas. And I did it actually in the garden too. I called them garden booths, where I had them like out in the garden where I put foliage in between the tables and so forth. And people just gravitated towards that in such a way that it was unique and different. So creating an atmosphere that I was able to aesthetically make interesting to people through the years of building the pools and the landscaping. I sit at every seat in the restaurant, and I want to be stimulated visually on what I'm looking at. So I'll have art, I'll have lighting, I'll have shadowing. I might have a little piece of statuary or something going on, and I'll sit at each one of those tables. And the goal is for you to sit there for a whole dinner, go, and maybe 6 months come back, get that same table, and then discover something that you didn't see the first time. You go, oh my
Yes.
gosh, look at that detail over there. I didn't realize that we had that lighting go through that woven panel box or whatever it might be. Unbeknownst to me, when I'm doing this, a wide variety of people are coming into this restaurant. And one of them was this woman, Susan Deloso, who was in charge of this 5,000 acre, the largest planned development in Northern actually United States at the time, about 20 miles away from us. When she heard that I was sold the restaurant to the Mormon church, I didn't go through this whole thing. That story was an interesting thing in itself. So how much time do we got? Do you want to hear this story about the Mormon church? It's an amazing story.
Let's go to the expansion or the moving.
Yeah. So the moving basically happened because the Mormon church purchased my restaurant, but they didn't want the restaurant. They just wanted the land because they were building this temple, $160 million temple. So I negotiate this sale, but I negotiate that I can take the buildings, I could do whatever I want because I wanted to move the restaurant. It's like super popular. It's a growing business. It's crazy. On any given night on the weekend, we do 400 or 500 dinners. It's like going.
Yes.
So she hears about it. We make this video and we send it to the owner of this 5,000, which is an international development company. And they decide that they want to, through my idea, we're going to pick up this restaurant, put it on wheels, move it 20 miles down the freeway, build a new building, and then insert the old building into the new building to have this renaissance of this community spirit that I was able to create 20 miles away. The people that would go to the restaurant 20 miles away are going to come to it because it's like they're going to go into their old restaurant again. They're going to love it. And then the new people, we're going to foster that bonding with them along with like grounds and acres of landscaping. And there's an event site right next door, which will be an amphitheater, where it'll be live shows. It's just an amazing fairy tale that has transpired. And I credit it all from the fact that the reputation of the restaurant was so involved in bonding the community together and weaving people together. And this large corporation called Cambay Corporation, they do developments in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, France, Poland, the Carolinas, Texas, Canada, California, South Korea. They're all over the world. They're developing planned communities, living communities, and they are so vested into building communities and know the value of that for the success of their projects, that they're scouring the earth on how can we get this sense of community. And when they basically found me and talked to me about it, it was so interesting to me that I had created something that they thought that was so valuable to their project to make that come together. So that in itself is now under production. You can go to my YouTube channel. Here I am, 72 years old, starting a YouTube channel.
Love that.
I'm doing YouTube on primarily documenting the process of moving and building this restaurant from start to finish. And that YouTube is going to continue through the acquisition of the hiring more staff, the training of the staff, the opening of the restaurant, and then the operations of the restaurant. And that's going to all be documented on how we basically do this over a period of time. And how we're going to basically build this restaurant that's going to be a third place for the community.
It's going to be great to follow. I'll put all those links in our show notes. I wanted to pick up on one thought that you had as we get ready to close, and that is the curiosity that you have maintained. That this idea of there are new ideas out there, there are other people to talk to, there are more books to read, more podcasts to not only listen to, but you're going to start your own. Talk about the mindset and the curiosity that has helped you navigate through these various entrepreneur ventures.
I think you're an example of that. We're talking about curiosity in a way where you are a patron of coffee shops and you want to increase that experience to a higher level of fulfillment. So you have your own coffee shop. Okay. So curiosity is like, how far can I take this journey of human connection? How deep can I make my relationships with other people? How far can I weave myself into a community to where the community feels that I am a part of that community and they're going to support me through my endeavors of my business, but I'm serving them. Everybody's self. What's in it for me? What's in it for you is to come to my restaurant. You're going to have an experience that's going to reward yourself for hard work in a small way. And that is the motivation. And then you're going to want to share that with others because it was an enjoyable experience for you. You are creating that in the coffee shop. I'm creating that, and I'm curious about the human condition on how I can continue to develop ideas, concepts, and things that enrich that human experience. And that basically manifests itself through diversity of experience through travel. So like
good.
when people in different countries and they go about different things in different ways, and then you look at that and that gives you time for reflection of how you can transport what I feel is a successful experience somewhere else. And so like one of the things we did at Redwood was in Vietnam, and I'm going down the street and I see a gong store. Now, I've never seen a store dedicated to just selling gongs, but they had them all over the walls there, and that was the product that they had. And they also sold ceremonial drums. So I go, I'm going to buy some drums and a gong because I want to remember this trip. But on the way back, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, my wife's not going to let me hang the gong in the living room. That's not going to work. So I come up with this idea in the restaurant business. We've all gone there where, oh, it's your birthday. They come out and clap and they sing you a little happy birthday, and it's uncomfortable, a little squirm in your seat experience. And people most of the time are embarrassed and don't really want it. And the family members love it that they're doing it. But at any rate, so I come up with this idea. What I'm going to do on birthdays and anniversary special occasion, I'm going to come up and I'm going to let the person that's having that celebration hit the gong. When they hit the gong, the noise is going to go out in the ethos of space, and the gods are going to grant their wish. So it's a non-denominational kind of like little experience. I started doing that, and it was crazy. You would hear this gong. You're in the other part of the restaurant. What's that gong about? People loved it. I'm up to 80-year-old women experiencing their birthday. They're hitting the gong. They're laughing. They've never had a gong hit in 80 years of birthdays and all that. So it was creating like this unique memory moment kind of experience for people that was involvement in recognition of their special reason why they were there. One of the home things that hit me, and I've shared this story before, was I went to a table. I've gone to, it's happened more than once, but I went to this table, and in the restaurant, there's your 2 top, 4 top, 6 top, whatever it might be. This is a 4 top table, but there's 3 people sitting at it. Normally, we would do that if there was just a 3 people. So I would walk up and I would just say, oh, looks like girls' night out or whatever it might be. There's only 3 of you here. Look, I've got a place where I can put an extra hors d'oeuvre here for you guys in this place. I can use that to your advantage. And then the person said, we're here because our friend died and this was their favorite place to go. And we come here once a year to remember them and have dinner at this restaurant because of that. Was so impactful to know that you had that type of an impact on someone's life, and that your restaurant was a vehicle for their friends to remember them by. That really hit home to me of how much impact I could and do have when we create and become part of a community and part of people's lives. And that what you're doing, I think, is the same thing, because people have a ritual of coffee. They'll come, they'll have those bonds. I always see Joe there in the morning. I always come down. I have that relationship. So in your town, you are doing the same thing that I do. So and I think it's probably very fulfilling for you.
It is. Bob, I can't thank you enough for sharing all these stories that you've motivated me to get back in the coffee shop, meet the people, shake the hands, touch the tables. I love your rituals. Listeners, my guest has been Bob Campana. He is a serial entrepreneur, restaurateur of the Redwood Café in Modesto, but also author of this great book, Don't Look Down. And I love the subtitle, The Improbable Adventures and Battle-Tested Lessons of a Serial Entrepreneur. Bob, thanks again for being on the show. We'll have to do it again and continue our conversation.
Thank you again. I'm most humbled. And if we ever have an opportunity to continue this conversation, I'd be grateful to do so.
I'm sure we are. So listeners, come back again as we continue our round the world travels. We're going to talk to creative practitioners everywhere. We talk about how we get inspired. We talk about how do we organize our ideas. And most of all, how do we gain the confidence and the connections to launch our work out into the world. So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity. Bye for now.